termination fee. Go to fiosgigabit.com.
Good morning, America. Breaking overnight, White House sources now reveal it was the president himself who drafted his son's misleading explanation about that meeting with a Russian lawyer. As the new chief of staff takes charge of the West Wing, forcing out communications director Anthony Scaramucci after just 11 days on the job.
Breaking news taken in the dark of night. The dramatic video showing two politicians abducted as the crisis with Venezuela's president hits a breaking point. The Trump administration unleashing new sanctions. Why this crisis could make gas prices skyrocket here at home.
Princess Diana's friends outraged over the new documentary featuring secret tapes of the late princess.
I should never pay the fine I did.
They reveal her most intimate thoughts about her relationship with Prince Charles.
And HBO hacked. The home of Game of Thrones breached. Were secrets about next week's episode stolen?
Why did you do that?
The revelations that could be spilled online about one of the most popular shows.
Live in Times Square, this is GMA with Robin Roberts, George Stephanopoulos, and Michael Strahan.
A lot of people watching online. Will Game of Thrones be leaked? We're going to talk about that this morning. Good morning, America. Also, a lot of major news out of the White House this morning. You know, despite previous denials, it turns out that President Trump himself orchestrated that first misleading response to John Jr.'s campaign meeting with the Russians. And of course, we have the White House shakeup. Communications Director Anthony Scaramucci out, even though he never actually officially started the job.
That's true, out after 11 days. And this is a photo that was taken by the Daily Mail. That's Scaramucci dining at the Trump Hotel in D.C. last night, just hours after being forced out as the new chief of staff, retired General John Kelly, takes over.
We'll see what kind of difference he makes. This is the latest in a string of shakeups. Look at the turnover since President Trump has taken office. A national security advisor, FBI director, press secretary, chief of staff, 2 communications directors have either been fired or forced out in just the first 6 months.
Our senior White House correspondent, Cecilia Vega, has more on Scaramucci's exit and that new report about the role President Trump played after his son Don Jr.'s meeting with a Russian lawyer. Good morning, Cecilia.
Hi, Robin. Good morning to you. You know, the president took to Twitter to say that there is no chaos inside his White House, but then came the ouster of his communications director, as you guys just said, after only 11 days on the job, and now this new bombshell about Russia. Overnight, that infamous Trump Tower meeting between Donald Trump Jr. and a Russian lawyer at the center of yet another bombshell. ABC News confirming President Trump personally dictated a statement released from his son to the media, claiming that pre-election meeting with Don Jr., Jared Kushner, and former campaign chairman Paul Manafort was primarily about Russian adoptions and was not a campaign issue at the time. That statement later shown to be misleading, with Don Jr. ultimately admitting it actually was a campaign-related meeting and that he agreed to see the lawyer after being promised dirt on Hillary Clinton. According to the Washington Post, the president was on Air Force One returning from last month's G20 summit in Germany. Some in his circle wanted the statement to be truthful, but the president ignored that. Advisors fearing his intervention could place the president and his team in legal jeopardy. Last month, the president's legal team denying his involvement.
The president didn't sign off on anything. The president wasn't involved in that.
And this morning, the president's lawyer denouncing the Washington Post report, telling ABC News, apart from being of no consequence, the characterizations are misinformed, inaccurate, and not pertinent. This after the president declared his White House chaos-free. On the very day his communications director was forced out after just 11 days on the job, Anthony Scaramucci's abrupt departure coming just hours after the swearing-in of the new White House chief of staff, John Kelly.
He will do a spectacular job, I have no doubt.
Tasked with delivering the White House message, Scaramucci, known simply as the Mooch, went off message in that crude tirade in the New Yorker. Some parts so profane we can't even describe what he said on TV. The White House says the president was none too happy about it.
The president certainly felt that Anthony's comments were inappropriate for a person in that position.
Comments like threatening to fire staffers over leaks, using expletives to attack Chief Strategist Steve Bannon, and carrying out a vendetta against former Chief of Staff Reince Priebus, who he called a paranoid schizophrenic. His ouster also fueled by that bold declaration in his first briefing.
He did, give me the orders today that I'm in charge and I report directly to him.
The White House now issuing a stunning shift in the chain of command. Everyone, including the president's own daughter and son-in-law, now report to the chief of staff. And White House sources tell us that the decision to force out Anthony Scaramucci largely fell to John Kelly. Really, it came down to that crude interview in The New Yorker. Kelly, a retired four-star general, wants to bring discipline to this West Wing, George, and this seems like it was his first order of business.
First day. Okay, Sid, thanks very much. Let's talk more about this now with our Cokie Roberts and John Avlon, editor-in-chief of the Daily Beast. And John, let me begin with you. Boy, on this Russia story, it seems like you get the truth only after a string of lies and denials.
That is the pattern, unfortunately. And what's significant about this story is it shows the president is willing to micromanage the Russia investigation response, and he's also willing, apparently, to directly mislead the American people with statements that were proven to be false. Whatever the president's lawyer has said subsequently is proven not to be accurate. So it's very stunning, and it shows a degree of direct presidential involvement, which itself is news and could very much interest the Mueller investigation.
No question will lead to questions, Cokie. Let me bring this to you right now, Cokie. I mean, the thing is here, it's not a crime to lie to the press by any means, but this does bolster the case of obstruction of justice, showing the president being part, potentially, of a cover-up.
Absolutely. It gives Robert Mueller lots of fuel for his fire, but it also shows you that the president simply doesn't listen to anybody. And it's one thing for him to sort of go off with the Boy Scouts and talk about, lewd things, and another thing for him to talk to the cops about police brutality and tweet all kinds of stuff in the morning. But for him to not listen to his lawyers who are telling him that this is a big mistake shows you that he's not willing to listen in any kind of situation. So does that mean he's not willing to listen to his generals? Does it mean he's not willing to listen to people who know what they're talking about in terms of Washington legislation? I think the answer to that is yes.
And we're going to find out now how much he's going to listen to General John Kelly, his new chief of staff. On day one, apparently he did listen. General John Kelly demanding that Scaramucci had to go.
And this had apparently been a condition of Kelly's hiring. He had been asked by Trump in the past, but he said, look, if this is going to happen, I'm going to have real authority over the White House. And that's what's been lacking. That was a problem with Reince Priebus. Too many people reporting directly to the president, including Scaramucci. And so it's significant that when the Marine comes in, he kicked out the mooch. He's trying to impose a degree of discipline and I think bring personal decency to the office, things that the administration really needs and he's known for. So it could be the best chance for a reset in the West Wing.
That's the situation right now, Cokie. But we also saw that report yesterday, I think it was by CNN, that apparently General Kelly was very angered by the firing of James Comey. And I wonder if the president might be buying potential trouble down the road. He's brought in someone who he can't really fire.
Well, he really can't, and it does help to bring a grown-up into the White House, as we saw with Leon Panetta and the Clinton administration. But the person in charge is Donald Trump. And there's not going to be anybody in the end who can stand up to him and say, we have to do it this way, Mr. President. That might last for a week or two, but it's not going to last for the duration of this first administration.
We shall see. Cokie Roberts, John Avlon, thanks very much. Robert?
Okay, George, we're going to move on now to that breaking news about the crisis in Venezuela. 2 opposition leaders taken in the middle of the night as the U.S. imposes new sanctions. Our chief global affairs correspondent, Martha Raddatz, is following these latest developments. Good morning, Martha.
Good morning, Robin. This is truly an ominous turn following the disputed election that gave President Maduro nearly unlimited powers, an election that the U.S. ambassador to the UN has called a sham. Take a look at this overnight surveillance video, which appears to show those 2 opposition leaders, one of them who went to college here in the U.S., being forcibly removed from their home, state security agents hauling one man away in his pajamas as a woman is heard screaming for help from neighbors. Both men have been highly critical of Maduro's plan to rewrite the Constitution, which has sparked protests blamed for more than 120 deaths. Robin.
And the Trump administration just announced new financial sanctions against Venezuela and its president.
They have, but Maduro remains defiant, calling President Trump an emperor and saying he will not be intimidated. Here at home, there are concerns this crisis could lead to a spike in gas prices. One economist says prices could rise 30 cents per gallon if the U.S. bans Venezuelan oil, Robin.
All right, Martha, thank you.
That big step has not been taken yet. We're going to move on now to Tropical Storm Emily. It hit Florida's Gulf Coast with heavy rain and winds. The governor declared a state of emergency. Thousands have lost power. And even though Emily has now been downgraded to a depression, Florida is still feeling its effects this morning. ABC's Gio Benitez is on the scene in Miami. Good morning, Gio.
George, good morning to you. Emily is now offshore, but this thing came in fast and furious, dumping up to 8 inches of rain across the state. Tropical Storm Emily suddenly forming off the Gulf Coast Monday, kicking off the week with a washout, creating a nightmare on the roads. Slick conditions sending this tractor trailer over a guardrail in Tampa, dangling over a highway overpass. Strong winds blowing up to 45 miles per hour, forcing officials to shut down the Sunshine Skyway Bridge. In Fort Myers, the heavy rains ripping the roof from this hotel. The Coast Guard swiftly rescuing these two brothers, hanging onto a navigation light. After their fishing boat's engine died, it hit the structure while sinking in the Tampa Bay.
It's imperative that every mariner or boater check their local weather forecast prior to getting out there.
Nearly 18,000 homes and businesses without power. Now the governor declaring a state of emergency across 31 counties. And right now, Florida officials are warning about rip currents along much of Florida's eastern coast, all the way up to Georgia. Robin?
All right, Gio, we're going to talk about that more on Emily's track and where we'll see those dangerous rip currents that Gio just referred to. Let's go to Ginger. Good morning, Ginger.
Hey, good morning to you, Robin. Let's start right here where you can see just a little spin left of Depression Emily. So you can see it off the coast there, just east of the center of the East Coast. Now, what I want to tell you is about those rip currents. We not only have advisories in place from Vero Beach, but right through Daytona, if you're Cocoa Satellite, if you have plans to be out at the beach today, up to Jacksonville and that far southern tip of Georgia, rip currents are possible. As this thing's heads out to sea, it stays that way, but it should leave a few more inches of rain, especially in southwest Florida that already got hit so hard. Coming up, Portland, Oregon has a potential to hit an all-time record high, George. I will tell you about that in just a couple of minutes.
Okay, but right now we're going to turn to a mid-flight air scare when an overheated mobile phone battery sparked a fire on a flight with more than 200 people on board. Crews quickly worked to extinguish the blaze. ABC's Adrian Bankert has the story. Good morning, Adrian.
Good morning to you too, George. Yeah, it's deja vu on board a plane, another cell phone or cell phone battery catching fire. It comes at a time of heightened security at airports nationwide, and it's a sobering reminder of what not to put in your luggage.
This morning, investigators sorting through how a lithium battery pack or mobile phones caught fire inside an overhead bin on a packed international flight. The crew noticing smoke shortly after meal service on board a Sri Lankan Airlines jet, extinguishing the fire.
There's no single safety standard, manufacturing standard for lithium-ion batteries. They can be made anywhere by anyone, and you never know what you're going to get. The cheaper they are, the less well-built they are, and the higher the risk of fire.
The FAA recently conducting new tests on lithium-ion batteries, which can smoke and explode like this. So far this year, the FAA has reported at least 18 incidents involving lithium-ion batteries on airplanes or in airports. Lithium-ion batteries power most of our personal electronics.
You're getting more and more lithium-ion batteries being carried on airplanes because people's personal devices need to be powered by these small batteries that hold a good charge.
It was a lithium-ion battery in a charger spewing smoke that forced this JetBlue plane to make an emergency landing in May.
Was it from a passenger or from a part of the airplane?
No, this is a battery fire from a laptop.
And you know what? The FAA is saying never, ever put any electronics, phones, laptops, in your checked bags. Always keep them with you or put them in a carry-on bag and power those devices down. In the event there is a fire, it would happen in cabin and the crew would have time to put it out. Robin?
Good advice there. All right, Adrian, thank you. We're going to turn now to what could be decision day in a trial making national headlines. A former drug executive's fate is now in the hands of the jury as he faces several counts of fraud. ABC's Lindsay Davis is here with those details. Good morning, Lindsay.
Good morning, Robin. After about a month of testimony, the jury is now heading into day 2 of deliberations, tasked with deciding the fate of Martin Shkreli, the man some have called the most hated man in America.
While awaiting a verdict in his federal securities fraud trial, Martin Shkreli, the infamously outspoken pharmaceutical CEO, is still unapologetic and speaking his mind on social media. He had this to say in a live stream on Thursday.
Trial's over tomorrow.
In our phone interview with Shkreli back in 2015, he shrugged off the notion that there was any validity to the harsh criticism of him after he notoriously raised the price of an HIV and cancer drug by 5,000%.
There was a lot of vitriol out there targeting you. One of the headlines even saying that you were the most hated man in America.
I'm not a greedy person. I care about patients. I spend most of my time reading about medical research.
The 34-year-old now faces up to 20 years in prison for unrelated charges of securities fraud and conspiracy if convicted. Prosecutors claim Shkreli ran his former companies, 2 hedge funds and a pharmaceutical company, like a Ponzi scheme, alleging that after he lost millions of investor money, he then looted a second pharmaceutical company to pay those investors back. But the defense, trying to paint Shkreli as a visionary, countered that there were no victims, that in the end, no one lost any money. Much to his lawyer's dismay, since his arrest in 2015, Shkreli has continued to respond to his critics on social media.
I don't really care about people hating me.
While Shkreli faces up to 20 years in prison, he would likely receive far less time under sentencing guidelines. But it appears he still has his sense of humor. Referencing the latest White House shakeup yesterday afternoon, he posted on Facebook that he is in for comms director.
Wow, he is shameless.
Yeah. Stranger things have happened, though, right? But he is a big Trump supporter as well. But taking this all in stride, I guess.
I don't think stranger things have happened. Okay,
Not
Lindsay,
yet.
thanks
Not
very
yet.
much. We're going to turn now to the search for 2 missing hikers. A young couple who were trekking at the Joshua Tree National Park in California. Search and rescue teams scouring the area. ABC's Jim Avila has the latest.
Overnight, search and rescue teams looking for a missing couple who vanished during a hike at Joshua Tree National Park in California.
As far as resources, we've thrown everything that we can to find these 2 young people.
Park officials say 20-year-old Rachel Wen and 21-year-old Joseph Orbeso went hiking last Thursday, disappearing early Friday morning. Both were expected to check out of their hotel on Friday, their belongings all left behind in their room.
We have no idea what their intentions were, what their plans were, how long they were going to be here.
Their vehicle, a burgundy Lexus, recovered near the park's west entrance in an area known as the Maze Loop Friday afternoon. Trackers believe the 2 were headed north into a canyon before they vanished. Volunteers and rescuers searching in the extreme heat, triple-digit temperatures, and rugged terrain.
It's been really rough out there. The searchers are going through a lot of water.
This morning, park rangers say there's no reason to suspect foul play. Their families say the pair are experienced hikers and planned the trip to celebrate Wen's birthday.
Today would make 5 days in the desert not a very friendly place this time of year. Temperatures expected to reach 110. Robin?
Oh, my goodness. All right, Jim, thank you. And we're going to go, Ginger, for fires in the west and record heat also in the forecast, Ginger.
Yeah, 50 large wildfires burning in the west, Robin. And we start with the pictures out of Lake Elsinore, California. This is Riverside County, just south of Riverside, 200 acres, 10% contained. In a fire just south of there, 9 firefighters were treated for heat-related illness. We're going to see, unfortunately, more of that all the way up to Seattle this week. All right, your Tuesday trivia now, brought to you by Starbucks.
Hey, what do you know, my love? I need you so when we belong together. When you're by my side, you know I feel alright, 'cause we belong together. We belong together.
Outside today, we're looking at a very nice stretch of weather continuing from yesterday. A little bit more heat, a little bit more humidity across the DMV. Temperatures pushing their way into the upper 80s. Slight chance of a passing shower or storm. And that'll be the story of the next couple of days. Very isolated shower storm chances daily. I think as we head through Friday, maybe a little bit better likelihood into early Saturday. By the back half of the weekend, it does start to dry out. Sunday, another gorgeous one with low to mid 80s.
Coming up, the dispute over Princess Diana's secret tapes, a new documentary revealing her most intimate thoughts and why her friends are trying to stop it.
And HBO's hacked. Are secrets from some of your favorite shows like Game of Thrones about to be leaked?
Boost. It's about moving forward, not back.